everybody. Well, Tim is back with a special guest, Kate Howells. Kate, hello. How are you?
Hi, Tim. Good evening.
Good evening. Uh, some of you might remember Kate from previous group recordings that are actually on this channel from a year or two ago when we used to record stuff as a group sometimes. Kate is a therapist in the UK, longtime therapist, worked with hundreds of clients over the years. And she has a new book, From Sleepwalking to Living. Congratulations, Kate. And
Thank you, Tim.
and yeah, this, first of all, the book, we think, no promises, but we think the book is free today. Look at the link in the description. You should be able to download a copy for free or inexpensively. Look at the link in the description. This is if
up
you
until the 18th.
up until
yes,
the 18th of
today.
June. We're recording this on the 16th. We think, at least this, yeah, we're pretty sure you should be able to get a discounted or free copy. Kate specializes in people healing from overly people pleasing and dealing with narcissists. Yeah, I mean, I've worked with Kate for a while. I've known her for a long time. She's a wonderful person and a truly fantastic therapist. So Kate, we'll probably get more into this. We were saying, in a couple of weeks, we'll have you back on. But while the book is free or discounted, I thought we could just have a short conversation about some of the main points that you cover in the book, because honestly, as you know, I haven't even read all of the book yet. However, I know I'm very familiar with your philosophy. And it's highly relevant to everybody, but especially people in this community, the law of attraction, law of assumption space, that don't seem to realize the degree of narcissism that we often see prevalent, first of all, just everywhere in the world, but also like in the online space. And also the degree of people pleasing that so many of us, to some level or another, suffer from. Your book kind of tackles both those subjects head on, which is not a surprise, knowing you. Something that stands out, I was just hoping you could speak a little bit about it. You cite a statistic saying that, about 1 in 6 people have narcissistic qualities to some degree, and that about 1 out of every 2 people are people pleasers. So could you just, say whatever the heck you want. This isn't your first rodeo talking to me on YouTube. But can you talk a little bit about those stats and what they kind of imply?
Well, I've been working now for 10 years. And I started off working with domestic abuse, with the domestic abuse service. And narcissism was coming up again and again. And I was finding that people were coming from other therapists who were in denial that it existed. Then I went into private practice. And over the years, I found that probably nearly every person who comes for therapy is coming because of a narcissist somewhere in their lives. And at first, when I would say this to other therapists, they'd be like, oh, no, you must give people a chance. If you change, they change. But that's not the truth. When you're dealing with a narcissist, they aren't going to change. And not because it's because they're not able to, and also not willing to. So I've worked a lot with people, working with the fallout, with groups and individuals. But it's a sea change now. It's now 1 in 6 people who have narcissistic traits, 1 in 20 with narcissistic personality disorder, which is the dreadful end of the scale, but 1 in 6 with the traits. And with so many people coming for help, that's fine, but there's demands for more and more services. And really what we need to look at, that this is evolution. We're beginning to change, and there is more and more narcissism, and alongside of it, more and more people pleasing. So the figures for people pleasing are 1 in 2. So you can see why so many people come for therapy to deal with the fallout from narcissistic abuse. Because if you're trying to please anybody, you're not being yourself. And if you're not being yourself, you're much more likely to be manipulated because you'll do whatever anybody asks you. So the book really, I was thinking about how to talk about my business on my website and how I work. And I had way too much to write. And then a publisher said, would you like to write a book about your business? And it struck me, it would be perfect to get as much out there as possible about people-pleasing narcissism and deal with this sea change, not from the point of view of we need more help for victims, but to look on it, why are so many people walking into these relationships? If this is evolution, how do we live more intelligently and safely alongside narcissism without vilifying it the whole time? Because this is a huge part of the population we're going to be vilifying. So wouldn't it be better to stop the people pleasing, be more self-led, take responsibility for ourselves and have less abuse and give less opportunity for people to abuse? So that's really what the book is based around. If you take responsibility for yourself, you're much less likely to get into these situations. And so it's a step-by-step guide, how to do that, how to take back the remote control to your own life, so you're not handing it over to other people, probably narcissists.
Yeah.
So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. I mean, it's still, it doesn't surprise me anymore, but it's wild that 1 out of 6 people have narcissistic qualities. But we, you know, that study pointed to something along those lines. Can you just, and just, you know, I know you know this, but in this law of attraction, law of assumption space, guys, there's so much of this going on. I can't speak about it enough. You know, and Marvin Daniels and I do a lot of relationship, AKA SP coaching. The majority of people that come to us have a partner or ex-partner who has narcissistic qualities. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's often the overriding issue. And our client often is reticent to admit that, or they think that, oh, this person can heal. They have these qualities, but they can change. And
so they want them back.
They want them back more than they want themselves back. And that's what has to be healed. And I think what your book touches upon is that
how to do that.
Exactly.
The step-by-step guide. And it's really, it's starting with looking at, you know, how does our thinking happen? Why are we anxious? So the general, because you aren't going to sort this stuff out unless you know how your mind works and how your emotions work and how they interact and how your thoughts operate in this and what the influences are from your childhood that make all of these things interact in the way they do. And so there's no point trying to get any partner back until you've dealt with the mess that's going on inside. It's better to be alone than trying to please some partner who's already been a pain in the neck. You've got to sort yourself out. And so that's really what the book is. It's starting right from the beginning. Why do I perceive myself in the way I do? Because that's going to be the key to what I let happen to me. And only I'm responsible for that. So whoever's abused me, done whatever they have done to me, that's their responsibility. They can deal with that. I don't know what will happen to them, but they've got to deal with that. I have to deal with how I perceive that. I don't want to perceive myself as always being linked to them. I don't want them living on in my mind. So I'm going to find a way to deal with that because my thinking is something that I can begin to manage. And as I do that, I begin to take more responsibility for how I'm perceiving people in the present. Because unless I let go of the people who have done whatever they've done in the past, whether it's parents who didn't love me, whether it's a sister who beat me up, whatever it is, if I'm still arguing with them in my mind, I'm going to project them or my getting even with them onto every single partner I ever have. So I've got to really clean up this jury in my mind so that when someone fresh comes in, I actually see them slightly how they are, not as a projection of all the past hurts I've ever had. And until I start that cleanup act, I will be having dreadful relationships, going out with people who have no idea what's going on, who I look up to and try and make fall in love with me when I don't even like myself. So the book will take people through, and it's not a long book, it's short, so it's obviously there's lots of work to be done for people on their own, but that's really what the theme of the book is. unless you take full responsibility for everything that happens to you and how you perceive everything in your life, you will never move beyond this stuff. You will not have good relationships. You will not have a good life until you take responsibility and say, yes, I did that. I have perceived things in that way. I don't perceive them like that now. I am willing to take full responsibility for all my relationships. And it doesn't mean life's going to be easy. Doesn't mean it's going to be a cinch, but it means that I know I am taking responsibility for everything that does happen. And so in that way, I'm not a victim to circumstance. I showed up, I got into this relationship, it went totally wrong. I invited this person in to abuse me. I'm going to actually say that I can take myself out of it and let them go. And I did that. So that's really the thing with the taking responsibility. And then if I'm beginning to do that, I don't need to worry about self-esteem, because if I take responsibility for myself, that becomes it's just there.
Mm-hmm.
Because actually self-esteem isn't something you add on. It's something we are without all of the rubbish that we've accrued. So then I will be operating in what's called self-esteem, but which is naturally occurring anyway. And then why would I let some really unpleasant person into my life to play games with me? I wouldn't be interested. I'd only be interested in getting involved with anyone if I really, really liked them. And there was any point of getting involved. And then that would be fantastic. But I think often with relationships, it's more the child within us with the unresolved hurts, the pain from years back that's saying, please, please like me, please, please love me, please, please tell me I'm attractive, please, please tell me I'm not ugly, please, please tell me I'm worth something, please, please tell me I'm not what my mummy said I was. And that's most of us what we take into a relationship. And so we will be abused, because that's what someone like a narcissist is looking to play with, is that self-doubt, self-loathing, because not because they're evil, but because they also dislike themselves. And law of attraction, like attracts like. So unless I'm actually okay with myself and in adult taking responsibility for myself, I will have lousy relationships.
Yeah. So you're telling me that robotic affirmations won't fix my life forever? I mean, that's what's so funny about this, this SP space and this relationship, spiritual bypassing we see all the time, is it's, of course, most of the advice is the opposite of what you just said, which is where the real self-concept, the real self-healing takes place, which is by taking responsibility and ownership of who I am and of my past behavior. And it's amazing how people they think they can avoid this. They think they can bypass it, right? That's why we say spiritual bypassing. And, as you make clear in your book, and as anybody who gets serious with themselves knows, you can't avoid yourself. And if you try to please others and degrade yourself by doing that, that's not something that's going to ever work for you long term. You have to heal who you are. There's a line, I don't know if I think it's in the book. Otherwise, it's just in the description. This great line: a people pleaser assumes someone else knows best. A narcissist is convinced they do. That's the perfect combination for abuse.
Yes, it's on the back cover.
Yep. Yeah. That's you talk about the law of attraction. That's the energetic attraction.
That's it in a nutshell.
Yep. It's that's what Marvin and I always talk. Attracting like is the yin and yang, and the people pleaser and the narcissist are that negative yin and yang coming together. And we just have to mature and heal from that dynamic if we want to have healthy, sustaining, long-term relationships. And I know it should go without saying, but we have to say it. Just because you distance yourself emotionally and don't people please a person who does not deserve your attention anymore, does not necessarily mean they have to fall out of your life. You can still, talk to your parents if they had narcissistic qualities, or talk to
Of
a
course,
former
yes.
partner, but it's just, you can't speak to them and interact with them in the same way as before and expect for things to change, because they will not. And people with narcissistic qualities will continue to take advantage of you. And narcissists, kid, maybe you can speak about this briefly too. Narcissists, especially when they get to be a certain age, I think, was it their mid-20s or late 20s,
Yeah.
they're very unlikely to change. The idea that you're going to change them, let alone you're going to manifest them to change,
Yeah.
is just, excuse my language, it's fucking insane. You're
Yeah.
just
It's not
asking
going to
for
happen.
heartache. Exactly. Yeah. So what is that, you know, that, I don't know, stat or whatever, or just like when do people become even more incapable of changing if they have some of these qualities?
So Dr. Ramani, the expert on narcissism, says, I think she says it's not, I always say it ain't fixed till you're 26. I don't know if she says that, but she says that in some way, shape or form. So at 26, it's more or less done, finished. But it's still it really requires help to prevent it sticking up until that point.
Right.
So it's a lot for parents to deal with if they have a child with those traits. And often there's a lot of it within families. And I work a lot with ADHD and autism as well. And that's also when I realized how much narcissism there was, because nearly every autistic or ADHD client had come up against it, or it's in their families. So it's never far away. If you've got someone who's on the spectrum, you'll always find it there within the family.
The yin. Yeah.
And then if
Yeah.
you think that, which I also talk about in the book, statistically, how many people are now neurodivergent, and people with ADHD are 6 times more likely than a neurotypical to get into a relationship with a narcissist or an abusive, unhealthy relationship. So there are lots of children increasingly being born into families with narcissism and neurodivergence. And these couples keep coming together.
Right.
So a lot of the work that I do is around working out how to recognize narcissism, how to not bother how to sidestep, not get involved. And also because of the intensity, people with ADHD like the dopamine hit, and narcissists love bomb at the beginning. So that's a huge surge in dopamine. And then once they start abusing, that dip before another a hug or a bit of niceness, that dip then causes a huge surge when they're nice again of dopamine. And so it becomes highly addictive and very difficult to get out of.
Right.
So the book also goes into that as well, about why particular groups might be more attracted to narcissists. So it's helping people recognize it's not worth that initial surge in dopamine because of what's going to come after a horrendous come down.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope that people watching this download the book. Again, you should be able to get it for free or inexpensively on Amazon in US or UK, or hopefully internationally. Link is in the description. If you're interested in working with Kate, her website's going to be in the description as well. And yeah, Kate, we'll definitely have you on sometime soon to speak about this. This is the stuff people do not want to hear but need to hear, guys. If you think Marvin and I come down hard,
it's a bitter pill. I put that in the book. It's a really bitter pill.
This is just the dark reality behind so much of this SP culture that we see, and it's worth acknowledging. And the other thing worth mentioning, we'll get to this in a later video, but just glancing at the book and just knowing you, the latter half or the latter chapter or two in the book, Kate actually does probably more of an interesting and better job explaining a lot of law of attraction, law of assumption concepts than you'll find in most modern books. So that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, definitely check out this book, especially if you have relationship issues and you know that you're dealing with narcissists or people with narcissistic qualities. Thanks again for coming on, Kate. Any final words?
Thank you, Tim. And yeah, it'll be great if you read the book. And as Tim said, it's tough in that it is a bitter pill to swallow, the stuff about relationships, but it's also worth it if you are really serious about wanting to
Exactly.
have healthy relationships. And I don't just mean with a partner, I mean with family, friends you might meet, bosses in the workplace. So yeah, I hope you find it
Well,
helpful.
I know that
Thank
many
you.
people will, for sure. Yeah, and that's exactly right. This isn't just about romantic relationships. The truth is, we all know narcissists, and the cliche person with the personality disorders on one end of that scale, but
Yeah.
the fact that, or just the statistic that one out of every six or so people has these qualities really should be an eye opener that people just are aware of, and hopefully makes us less likely to people please people who do not deserve to be necessarily pleased. All right. Until next time, everybody, be well. We'll talk to you soon.